So hi, I'm Lisa Escárcega. I'm running for State Board of Ed, Congressional District 1. And I am here with my colleague, friend, Troy Hubbell. And Troy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Troy Hubbell. I'm a special education teacher, a member of DCTA and a CEA fellow as well. Really passionate about education and the State Board of Ed race. So thanks for chatting with me.
Very good, very good. So Troy, you had a couple questions that you had gathered. You want to go ahead and just start asking, and then we can just start the conversation?
Yeah, that'd be great. So the first question is, and I know this is something that'll be heavy on a lot of teachers' minds in Denver in particular, with schools just increasingly a part of our state, it's more important than ever for parents and schools to have good information about what's working and what's not. Do you think that the current school evaluation system is an effective way to identify quality schools? And do you think that what's done if a school is identified as not being a quality school is helpful? If the answer is no, what needs to change so that we can have faith in the system?
All right, good. I like that question. We, or I should say I, have been a part of a team, been working on this for probably 20 years, right? And what we most recently, there's a couple states, and Massachusetts is like one of my favorites, who has come across this and has been implementing it, and I believe it's really the way to go. And that is this idea of expanding what our definition of a quality school is. Right now, as you're well aware, right, our state went along with all the other states, we adopted this very narrow view based mostly on test scores. And we said, we will rank all these schools and that's quality.
Yep.
We missed a whole part that, and then again, this is why I like Massachusetts so much. We missed this whole process to defining what a quality school is. And that is first going out to the community, to parents, to staff. And when you ask them, what is a quality school? Test scores, you can look at all the surveys, you can look at, trying to think if it's Kaplan surveys. Test scores are important, but there's a whole wealth of other factors that people think go into a quality school. So if we could do that same process and expand our definition, it allows staff, teachers, administrators to start focusing beyond just test scores and focusing on other important things, right? And then you get that whole child large view, I guess, is how I would put it.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So like one of the things that we've seen in Denver, I'm thinking of in particular, like Lincoln High School, is schools that work with populations that have a lot of poverty and trauma, or schools that work with a lot of newcomers. When they get judged on test scores, you can't expect a person who's just arrived in the United States to test close to the same level as someone who has grown up here and has educational and economic resources at home. I mean, that's got nothing to do with the quality of the school. What kinds of things do you think we can look at so that we're really measuring something that a school has control over instead of looking at something that really is apples and oranges?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And to your point, the research is very clear and has been for some time that test scores maybe teachers in classrooms account for 30% of test scores. So you've got that 70% of the variables, right, that we don't account for. Many of them are the ones that you just mentioned. So what can you look at for students? So not just the outputs, but the inputs, right? Is a quality school got programming that is addressing the needs of recently arrived immigrants? Are there courses? Do kids have equitable access to all courses? Then you can look not only at those inputs, but then outputs. So how many of those students are gaining credit, are attending? Are the teachers getting professional learning geared toward the population of students that they're serving, not what the district decided all teachers should have, that kind of piece, right? And so, and you bring up another really good point is, does it have to look exactly the same at every school? If schools have different populations or different missions, Where's the room to include quality indicators on the dual language program? Why am I having the same as an IB program somewhere across town? Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, a couple examples.
I appreciate your answer on that. Another question I wanted to ask, and this one's really important to me as a special education teacher, because I find over and over and over again that get kids in fifth grade way too late to receive specialized instruction who can't read. And oftentimes these are kids that are exceptionally bright, that could be in AP classes, and because we either misidentified them late, which is part of it, and because well, there's just a really big gap between what districts have the knowledge and capacity to provide in terms of literacy instruction, and also what science works in literacy instruction. And we see that in stagnated literacy gains, and we see that in school students in high school who are reading below a basic level. How are you going to support schools and districts so that they can move in a direction that aligns with the way that science says that all kids can learn how to read?
Okay. Well, so that's a big question. I appreciate that question. And you know, we've talked about this. I'm a school psychologist, and I've testified on some of the READ Act bills and actually helped write the last one. As far as, yes, there are dyslexic kids. There are many of them that go far too late in the process before they're diagnosed, and then remediation becomes very, very problematic. So I think that part of, you know, what you can do as a state board, right? We don't have quite the direct authority that people would love in this case, right? We can't mandate that people use certain curriculums and such, but you can still go, I think you have like a direct approach and an indirect approach. So the direct approach is based on like the READ Act that we just passed, the revisions, is working with the commission, working with the departments, and to the extent that I already do work with districts, getting them to comply and getting them to understand the importance of why we put the law through, right? And sometimes that's a first step, is getting people to really understand the importance of the early training and the early identification. I also find that districts often look to other districts where they see success. And I know we're starting to do this, and so trying to do a better job at the data and the data analysis so we can really track back and show districts solid information of why. Here we have this pocket, we call them islands of excellence, whatever it is. When people really see it and believe it, again, they're more likely to do it. And I think those are kind of your direct. Indirect is much more inside of conversations, working with the state board. Joyce Rankin, you know, is very much involved with this, working with legislators around potential policy. And so I think it's both sides of that, and it's leveraging those relationships that I have now and that we have to bring, to just bring this more to light. You know, and again, I think you and I have talked about this. It's not that teachers, well, there's another part I forgot to mention, and that is in teacher induction, teacher training, right? Our licensure programs, which the state board does have control over. And we have been pushing them to make sure that teachers have this training coming out, right? It's hard, again, to expect something from someone when they haven't had it. And so that is one area directly that I really want to continue to push on. So people coming out the door have got at least the basics. And then, of course, you know, it takes several years to get up and running as a teacher. It took me at least probably a good 5 years to really get to be a good psychologist. So.
And what do you think is it okay if I ask a follow-up question to that one?
Sure.
What do you think is the role in the State Board of Ed? I remember when the original READ Act came out, teachers really didn't get a lot of information, and they really didn't get, at least in my district, any new curricular resources. But we did get a lot more paperwork. What do you think is the role of the State Board of Ed in making sure that when things are rolled out, they're rolled out in a way that's impactful and helpful, and not as another sort of bureaucratic checker, as oftentimes well-intentioned ideas become?
You know, that is using background and experience when you're looking at, and when we're working with legislators around these proposed laws. That's part of what I currently do is I get in there and I say, no, I don't think you understand what they currently have on their plates now and what you're asking. Maybe this is a duplication, or maybe this is, I don't think this would be effective. In using that experience, talking with teachers, and we try to the extent we can, run this stuff by you and say, how does this fit for you? Is this going to help you? And I think it's working one-on-one in those kind of avenues that we get some of the best information so that we can preemptively not have some of this roll out. I know we really, it wasn't the READ Act in itself when it first rolled out, we fought, but we did fight it pretty hard because it just wasn't balanced enough. And we didn't think it would have the impact, and it didn't actually, it didn't. And then there is an evaluation that is going to be done. And I know a lot of people said, oh my gosh, why are we spending this money? And there is a part that really, in order to justify the amount of money we're putting in the READ Act, and we do know there's some areas doing it well, we need to evaluate those, and we need to have, again, hard information to bring back to the legislature, to show to school districts, to show to teachers where it's working and where it's not. So I don't know how much, given the next budget cycle, how much we're really going to have for that evaluation, but I'm hoping it does bring us better information than what we have now. I can tell you that.
Thank you for that, and thanks. Bringing back to what you said about talking with teachers, most teachers, I think, really don't feel considered on the decisions that impact their lives. So I want to thank you personally for throwing that out. That's something that I know is important to myself and a lot of other teachers. On that subject, a lot of teachers don't have faith that education's moving in the right direction. A lot of teachers think it's moving in the wrong direction. And we get a lot of top-down directives that don't make sense in the context of our schools or our classrooms. And a lot of times they turn into increased paperwork and increased expectations, and all of that costs money. And so what we wind up with is decreased support. And so you wind up with teachers who are trying to do 100 things and wind up doing nearly all of it badly instead of focusing on a couple of important things that we can do really well to help kids, because people just get overwhelmed. What will you do to ensure that teachers are supported and to make sure that what we're doing is sustainable and something that's really going to help kids? And in particular, and also, how would you work to, we've seen record low enrollment in teacher preparation programs. This isn't an area that people right now are going into because of a lot of the way that reform is happening. How will you fill the teacher pipeline? And in particular, how will you work to attract and maintain teachers of color? Because a lot of times, I think anyone who can tell you who's worked in a Title I school, our teachers don't look like our kids. And teachers of color in particular are not feeling very supported in our districts.
Okay, so I heard about 3 questions in there.
Sorry.
I think it's okay. It's okay. My mind goes to first, I want to say leadership matters. So when we're talking about the requirements that are put on teachers, we've got to work with leaders so that they are not adding to this, right? And the best leaders I've ever worked with are people I always felt like were playing like the front net of a tennis game. And they were playing against the district, and they kept as much as they could away from their teachers, right? So empowering leaders to continue to do that, to be able to stand up to the district, I think is important. But overall, I think it is a continued, as a state board member, I think one of the most important things is to continue to meet one-on-one with teachers, to be in classrooms, to go visit, to make sure that I fully understand the realm of what is going on. Many, many people that work either in the legislature or in administration don't really see the impact of all of their little ideas when they've been put together. Nope. And as part of school reviews, which I've done many for many years, and I have been in thousands of classrooms, worked with thousands of teachers, and I do get it. And as an administrator, I could always, when I had that opportunity, could say, no, you can't do this. You don't understand, right? So passing that message on is a big part of what I can do. Teachers of color, this is where I think, this is probably where, most importantly, having to continue to meet with them and listening to what they're telling us. And I have met with many groups, many individuals, and Dr. Bailey's report out of DPS, which isn't even that, it's not that old, really points out the issues that they are experiencing, both teachers and both leaders. I like Coleman, Rep. Coleman just put a bill through that it's a study, but it's probably the best thing we can do, where they're going to be trying to come up with some pieces around licensure, testing, maybe loan forgiveness, other ways that we can draw teachers of color into the field. And then it is about, again, training administrators. How do you support your teachers of color, right? And this is different. They're asking and they need different support. They themselves together as a group provide support for each other, but they're running into walls, and the wall hits as soon as you get outside the classroom. So I think it's an ongoing conversation, but I believe if people are really serious about this, we'll see some movement. It's just really testing the waters to make sure people are really, really on board with this.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your time and for your answers.
You're welcome.
A lot to cover, but I think, in my opinion, what teachers are feeling is a lot of the result of kind of those three, feeling like there's a lot being pushed on them they don't have support to do, and feeling a disconnect from the people who are making decisions. So
yes.
I really appreciate you committing to continuing to meet with teachers after you're elected, because I think that right now is something that's not happening and something that's dearly missing in the system.
You bet. Well, I always appreciate your questions. You make me think, and that's always great.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa.
Okay, thanks, Troy.